What's up, my homies? Welcome back for The Mask Part 2. Last time, we met loser slash potential serial killer Stanley, played by the wonderful Timothy Carey. We also met Tina, played by my future wife, Cameron Diaz, and Tina's bad boy boyfriend, Dorian, and some other minor characters nobody really cares about, except for the dog. Everybody likes dogs. When we left off, Stanley had put on the mask again, and he was hoping for a fun night out, but he's got money troubles. I know what it's like. I've been bankrupt 6 times. Don't ask me how I managed to bankrupt casinos. It's literally free money, but I did, and that makes me special. Let's see how Stanley figures out his money problems. Dorian's henchman buddies are getting ready to break into the bank. On the phone, Dorian calls his buddy Freeze, but his buddy calls himself the Doctor again. So is he Dr. Freeze, like the guy from the best Batman movie ever, Batman and Robin. It also has the best Batman ever, played by the amazing George Clooney. Can't say enough nice things about him. Stanley comes bursting out of the bank. He's already robbed the place. Very unfair. Dorian and Dr. Freeze have been planning this for a while. The money belongs to them to steal. I hope Stanley shares. He doesn't. Well, the selfish bastard just zips away with everything like a cartoon. The cops show up and shooting starts. Don't be foolish, Dr. Freeze. Run away and live to steal another day. At the Coco Bongo Club, Stanley shows up in an absurdly huge limo. I want one. He gets into the club by throwing money in the air. If you want people to like you, bribe them. That's what I always say. Inside, Tina's singing on stage. Stanley notices her and starts a cartoon mating ritual. While she's singing, Dorian gets called into his office by hench buddy number 2. Always the way if you're the boss. Never any me time. After Tina finishes singing, Stanley goes on stage, and the band starts playing a Grace song, which sounds like it comes from a better time when only white people were allowed to succeed. Stanley and Tina start dancing. It's very high energy. My heart is racing just sitting here watching. I'm sweating a lot too, and I've got pain in my left arm. I'm sure it's fine though. In Dorian's office, we find out that Dr. Freeze has been shot. Dorian gives him a cigarette and he dies immediately. This is why you shouldn't smoke. Just putting a cigarette in your mouth can kill you. He was a doctor too. He should have known better. Dorian asks hench buddy number 2 whose fault it is, and hench buddy 2 blames Stanley, which is unfair because hench buddy 2 is the one that started shooting at the police. Dorian should slap the Christ out of him. Back on stage, Stanley and Tina are finishing their dance, and Tina is attracted to Stanley. Now he has a big green head. Cameron Diaz has been in 2 movies where she falls for a green guy, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. What's next? Is she going to hit on the Hulk or start a family with the Grinch? One of the hench guys shoots off a piece of Stanley's tie and it turns back into pajamas. Very eldritch. Dorian tells Tina to get lost. Very rude. Show some respect to women. He asks Stanley where the money is, and Stanley says a lot of business talk that I didn't understand. The hench guy shoots at Stanley some more, and Stanley dodges the bullets like Jesus in those movies where he fights computers. Hench guy gets a lucky shot, and Stanley collapses in his arms and dies. Very sad, but then the audience starts to cheer, and someone gives Stanley an award for acting. I was in a movie where I had to pretend to care about a child in distress. Wonderful acting. I'm probably the greatest actor there is, maybe ever, and no one has given me an award. Dorian shoots at Stanley, and Stanley bounces around like a kangaroo on meth. The police show up. It's mean cop Kellaway again. He accuses Dorian of robbing the bank. Very unfair to accuse people of something they didn't do, like robbing banks, or going to islands they didn't go to, or being besties with a guy I barely knew. Dorian and his henches are arrested, and Calloway spots the piece of Stanley's pajamas. Very suspicious. The next morning, Stanley wakes up in his apartment because someone is banging on his door. I've seen Stanley waking up more times than I've seen Melania. She won't share a bed with me. She says it's because she wants to save it for special occasions. I don't know what the special occasions are because I tried to get her to come to bed for my birthday. And she said it wasn't special enough because I already had 78 of them. Stanley tries to hide the mask in the closet, but it's full of money. Don't let them know where your money is or you'll have the tax man up your ass. Stanley opens the door and it's Calloway making all the noise who lets himself in. That guy is everywhere. Why doesn't he take a break and let someone else have a turn catching criminals? Greedy son of a bitch. He asks Stanley about the mask and shows him the piece of Stanley's pajamas, and Stanley says his pajamas were stolen. Calloway is incredulous, but I think it's very believable. Those pajamas were very fashionable and trend-setting, could easily have been stolen by some jealous bastard at the police station. Calloway, how'd he get there so fast? And his partner, Doyle, are watching video of Stanley robbing the bank. They don't seem to have much of a reaction to a guy having super speed. In his office, Dorian is offering 50 grand to some nasty criminal types to capture Stanley. Way too cheap to hire someone to do your dirty work. We're talking 6 figures here, or so I'm told. After the criminals leave, Dorian says some mean things to Tina. Don't put up with it, girlfriend. You deserve better. At the bank, Stanley shows up late for work again, and his boss yells at him again. So Stanley yells back, "Good for you, Stanley. Show that boss who's boss." Charlie tries to cheer Stanley up with tickets to the Coco Bongo Club. Good guy, Charlie. Everybody should have a buddy like Charlie. Little obsessed with the Coco Bongo. There's got to be other places to go on a night out. Tina comes in to tell Stanley that she doesn't want to open a bank account anymore. I think Stanley has bigger things to worry about. Have some perspective, Tina. They start talking about Greenhead Stanley. I don't think Tina knows Greenhead Stanley and regular Stanley are the same Stanley. He tells her he's friends with Greenhead. Just tell her it's you, Stanley. You buffoon. This guy just cockblocks himself. Tina wants to meet Greenhead later in the park. Stanley says he'll arrange it. So he cockblocks himself and the cucks himself at the same time. After work, Stanley goes to see a boring guy about the mask and Skip. Outside, we find out Calloway is stalking Stanley. Get a life, loser. That night at the park, regular Stanley shows up to meet Tina, and Calloway and Doyle are hiding in the bushes, watching like a couple of perverts. Tina shows up and her and Stanley chat for a bit. Then he hides in a bush and comes out Greenhead Stanley. This time he's French for some reason. He makes some very inappropriate, sexually suggestive comments, and she knees him in the testicles. Good for you, Tina. Calloway comes out of the bushes and tells Stanley to freeze, and Stanley freezes in midair. That's Levitation Holmes. The cops arrest Stanley and start to search him. Meanwhile, at Peggy the reporter's office, Peggy the reporter finds out Stanley has been arrested, and she convinces her boss to let her have the story. I don't trust her. She seems nice, but I think she'll betray Stanley at a crucial moment. Back at the park, the cops are still searching Stanley. They pull a lot of wacky stuff out of his pockets. I'm not going to list it all, though. Who has the time? This video is already 8.5 minutes long. They find a sexy picture of Calloway's wife, and he's not happy about it, so Stanley slaps him and runs away. Outside the park, Stanley nails the gate shut, turns round, and screams. He's surrounded by cops. He screams so hard his skull pops out of his head. How is he still alive? Some spotlights come on, and suddenly Stanley is dressed like an Hispanic person. Steal from other cultures much? He starts to sing, and I gotta admit, it's a very catchy song. They call me Cuban Pete. I'm the king of the rumba beat. When I play the maracas, I go chick chicky bum, chick chicky bum. What a great song. And that Cuban Pete is a great guy. One of the good ones. I think we should let him stay, but only if he lets me be king of rumba. It's a wonderful country, and the Rumbanian people love me. I think they would want me to be their king. The cops join in with the singing and the dancing, and a fun time is had by all except Calloway, the miserable bastard. The cops start shooting at Stanley, and he runs down an alley and takes the mask off. Why would you take off the thing that's making you bulletproof while people are shooting at you? Peggy pulls up in her car and Stanley gets in and they escape. Phew, that was lucky. Maybe I was wrong about Peggy. At the newspaper factory, Stanley is complaining about having unlimited power to Peggy. I wouldn't wear the mask if I had it, but just because I don't want my face to be an unnatural color. Dorian and his guys walk in. Turns out Peggy betrayed Stanley at a crucial moment. Who could have seen this coming? I know I didn't. Dorian threatens to drop Stanley into the big printer if Stanley doesn't tell him how the mask works. Who doesn't know how a mask works? Just put it on your face, you moron. Maybe you shouldn't be running a criminal empire. Dorian puts the mask on, and instead of doing whirlies like Stanley, he just stands there while he gets covered by a cloud. Very visually unimpressive. The cloud disappears and Dorian is turned into a big ugly son of a bitch. I don't think we're gonna get wacky adventures with this guy like we did with Stanley. Later on, Stanley is tied up in the back of a car while the henchbuds take the money from his apartment, which is only fair because they were gonna steal it from the bank first. Little doggy Milo escapes the apartment and follows them as they drive off. What a great little guy. Everybody should have a dog like Milo. They drop Stanley off at the police station right on top of Kellaway, who arrests him. Lucky Kellaway. Maybe he can finally put his feet up for a bit now. Stanley is in his cell when Milo shows up in the alley outside his window. Poor little guy, just laying there looking sad. Can we get him some treats and a blanket? Is that something we can do? The next day, Tina comes to visit Stanley. He tells her that he was the guy in the mask, and she tells him she has the hots for him. Come on, Tina, the guy's in prison, and you're gonna blue ball him like that? She tells him she's leaving town, and they're about to kiss when the guard calls time. Stanley can't catch a break. Finally stopped cock-blocking himself, and now the guard's doing it to him. Outside, Tina gets chased by Dorian's hench dudes. Stanley sees and wakes up the guard to help, but he just goes back to sleep. I don't blame him. Sometimes you need a little nap at work. Outside, Dorian gets hold of Tina. He's very upset that she talked to Stanley. That's a little controlling Dorian. He does promise to take her to a party later, though. So it's good. He doesn't hold grudges. Back with Stanley, and he gets Milo to jump to the window and brings him into the cell. Little dog could be the next Air Bud. Stanley tells him to get the keys off the guard. He gets cheese instead. How adorable. I would have let him eat the cheese. Milo gets the keys and Stanley gets out of his cell. He grabs the guard's gun and knocks out the guard. Careful, Stanley, you could give the guy concussion, at least check his vitals to make sure he's okay. Kellaway shows up and Stanley takes him hostage and they head outside. None of the other cops notice Stanley has a gun behind his back. No wonder they can't catch any criminals. They're obviously hiring blind people. Typical diversity hires. They get in Kellaway's car and head to the Coco Bongo. At the club, everybody's dressed up. Nico and his goons are there having a great time when Dorian and his henches show up to ruin the fun. Nico's goons get killed and Nico shoots Dorian, but he absorbs the bullets and kills Nico by spitting them at him. Very unsanitary. Outside, Stanley and Kellaway show up. Stanley leaves Kellaway locked in the car. Don't be stupid, Stanley. Just because you knocked out one guy doesn't make you a badass. Stanley somehow manages to knock out a guard and take his gun. Inside, he rescues Charlie, which involved whispering his name and Charlie freely walking over to him. What is happening? Why is no one guarding the hostages? Very amateur hour. Stanley gives Charlie a gun and tells him to sneak people out should be easy. Looks like the police aren't the only ones hiring blind people. Dorian ties Tina and a bomb to a tree in a pool. Not enough that you're going to blow her up. You have to get her shoes wet as well. Outside, Milo figures out how to get out of the car and goes inside. Clever dog. I want one, but Melania says, I can't have one unless I clean up the poopies myself. And I don't want to do that. Stanley tries to sneak up and gets caught immediately. Tina tries to distract Dorian by asking for a last kiss, but with his regular face and not his butt, ugly mask face, and he falls for it like a simp. While they're kissing, she kicks the mask out of his hand and Milo catches it. Stanley tries to free Tina, but Dorian punches him in the face. They fight, and I gotta admit, Stanley doesn't do too bad. Hench guy number 2 gets hold of Milo, so Milo puts the mask on, and he goes from cute dog to scary dog, but in a fun way. Milo pees on him and bites another guy on the butt. I hope the guy wipes properly. Stanley beats Dorian somehow. If I was Dorian, I'd be embarrassed to be beaten by a weedy guy like Stanley. Stanley takes the mask off Milo, and the bad guys shoot at him. He dives behind the bar, and you think he's dead for a second, but he pops up with the mask on. That was close. I was really nervous there. I'm literally shaking. Stanley pulls out a lot of big guns, and the bad guys run away. I would too, probably with a brown trail behind me. Just as the bomb is about to go off, Stanley swallows it, and it blows up in his stomach. It just makes him burp instead of turning him into splatter, though. Dorian pulls out a tiny knife and jumps into the pool. Really, you think a guy who just ate a bomb is going to be affected by a box cutter? Stanley paints a toilet flusher on the tree and flushes Dorian down the drain. Is he dead? Is he alive? Who knows? Either way, he's not going to smell great. Stanley takes the mask off, and he and Tina are about to kiss when Charlie comes in with the police. Caught blocked by his best friend this time. Outside, Kellaway tries to arrest Stanley, but his boss, the mayor, won't let him. Very unfair. He's been after Stanley the entire movie, and he doesn't even get to arrest him. Sad. Stanley is smug a bit about saving the day, but that's okay. I think he's earned it. Later on, back at the bridge from the start of the movie, Stanley is thinking about getting rid of the mask, but he's not sure, so Tina takes it off him and casts it into the water from whence it came. They finally get to smooch as Stanley says smoking again. Maybe he really needs a cigarette. I wouldn't be surprised. He has had a stressful few days. Charlie and Milo jump into the water to get the mask, and Milo gets it first. The little scamp. What a great movie. Very funny, a little bit slutty. I really like the little dog. I bet a sequel would be just as good, maybe better. Mr. Carey, I can sanction your buffoonery. I give this movie 5 out of 5 puckered mouth and uses. If you enjoyed this video, then please force your friends to watch it, and don't forget to like and subscribe.